Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of A2K, April 5th, 2019. Oh my God, 2019, April already? Yeah, it is. And it's great to be here. It's a great honor to be here with my lovely partner in time, Kara. How are you?
I love that. Partner in time. I am amazing. I'm better than amazing.
That's fantastic. You look amazing, sound amazing. We
Yeah.
had a nice little discussion earlier, which enlightened me into all the wonderful things that have been going on in your evolution and all the wonderful things going on in your experience. And yeah, it shows. It shows. You look good.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel very strong. I feel also really fresh, kind of like a beginner. Not like and by the way, I definitely like to keep myself in check about this, but I feel it is so crucial to approach life as a beginner.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Hold on one second. Isabel needs to get in here.
Oh, good, because I'm going to grab one water. Forgot a water. Everyone needs a water.
My dog Isabel would be barking at the door if I didn't let her in. But Kara, that's interesting you say that about being fresh and having that beginner spirit. I like to refer to the tarot cards a little bit because as they are archetypes of our experience and life and history and all that, there's the card that's associated in the beginning. It's the zero card. It's called the Fool. And when you start the journey, you look at the fool and be like, this fool, he doesn't know what he's doing. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's just willy-nilly, just happy dancing around and just jumps off a cliff. Like, what are you doing jumping off a cliff, you fool? But then you go through the whole journey and it ends with the fool as well, because once you come to that full circle realization, you look at the fool with new perspective. The fool is the beginning and the end at the same time, having that innocence yet strong sense of wisdom that allows you to make that leap, not doing it out of ignorance. It's funny that the word fool and ignorance kind of seem to go hand in hand, but I think that there's a lot misunderstood about that essence of being in a perpetual state of beginning, right?
Which I love too that you're highlighting, because I told you I'm writing a book right now, and one of the things the main character is a female superhero basically, but in the book, which I've written kind of about myself, she is in a perpetual state of not knowing. She always says, I know nothing, I don't know. Like, these are her catchphrases in the book, because I wanted to write this into my own characteristic where, and truly, the more you know you don't know. And the more that you're truly open to being a fool, the more you are open to being a sage. And so I'm still picking, like, the character in my book. It's very easy for her to be like, I don't know, I know nothing. For myself, like in real time, I'm learning how to accept that. It's funny too, because I'll catch myself wanting to know something or wanting to be right on something or wanting to show that I know something to someone else. And it feels like a prison when you do that to yourself. It's so much more freeing to literally have no agenda to prove to anyone that you know anything, or to sound wise. I mean, really, it's so funny to even think that we could sound wise. I mean, it's the most freeing to say, I know nothing, I do nothing, I am nothing.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because you know what it really reminds me of is the movie Mr. Nobody.
Mr. Nobody. I don't know if I've seen that one. What's that about?
With Jared Leto.
Oh, Mr. Nobody. Oh man, I think I did see that.
It's such a cool movie. And when I saw that, there's just something about that movie that reminded me that the path of nobody is the path of the wise. The path of somebody is actually the path of the fool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to be tantamount to the difference between being and doing. Who we are versus what we do. And there's that whole debate. It's not who you are that defines you, it's what you do. Or no, it's not who you are, it's what you do. It's kind of always comes back down to that. And it's I think that's a really good thing you touch on, that it's almost like the best piece of knowledge that we have. And knowledge is good. Knowledge is really important, I think. And I'm sure you would agree, but our perception of knowledge seems to be a little lacking of the knowledge, because we seem to have forgotten that the one piece of knowledge that truly exists in this world is that we know very little. And in that humbleness of not knowing much or not knowing anything and accepting that, that's where all the questions start to emerge. Okay, well, who am I, or what is this all about? Because if you don't know, that leads to questions, and questions are good in the nature of this whole experience. Because if you know what's going on, then there's no questions. Everything's certain. And where's that going to lead? That seems to be a dead end road right there.
Yeah. It's like finite beings trying to be infinite.
Yeah.
Instead, there's so much infinity in knowing that you're a finite being. It's the most freeing thing in the entire world. It's just like, well, I'm finite.
Yeah. And that's the thing about infinity, right? The eternity. We talked earlier in our conversation about how the theory that we're living in a simulation, or like we were talking about how we're in this cave paying attention to our shadows and not recognizing who we really are, just fixated on the shadows of who we are. And yeah, it's interesting. We really have a lot to learn. We have a lot to learn in that to be in eternity, to truly have an eternal nature, takes responsibility, for one thing. And we have a lot to learn about our responsibility. Why we need to not be I think we need to be responsible on our own accord, rather than you need to do this because you're in charge. There's a freeing nature to that. So it's like there is I think if we're talking about the simulation, there is a purpose to the simulation. There is a purpose to this experience of having a finite existence. But there is much more to that. But there is at the same time, simultaneously, we need to let go of that need to, like you were saying before, to sound wise, or to have that whole thing. It's just, we gotta let go in that respect. No, I don't know if any of that made sense.
It's funny. Think about, and you and I have both talked about the challenges with the New Testament in the Bible, but just to reference a point that is in the New Testament where Yeshua says the only beings that can enter the kingdom of heaven are children. So I think that is also kind of highlighting what we're talking about, and accepting that we are really children on this planet. We are finite beings trying to understand an infinite being, and when we try to be adults and we're adulting and we pay our bills and we get a job and we have insurance and on and on and on, we forget that actually the real purpose that we are here is to be children in this experience, and to allow the newness of life to come over us in that perspective, instead of, again, being like, well, I have a 401k, so I'm an adult, and I will look at the infinite being through my adult eyes.
I've got a 401k, therefore I'm done. I'm set. My life is set. I can retire one day.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
It is amazing, because it's what's so funny is My entire life, I have felt like a child here on this planet. Even when, I had a job and I drove a car and I paid my insurance and this, that, and the other, I've always felt this kind of childlike being. And I thought I had to hide. I thought like, that was sorry, Kara, you're just not, you don't know how to be an adult. Like, that's literally kind of how I felt about myself. And when in actuality, it's not that. I mean, yes, of course, be responsible, get car insurance, you are responsible to put gas in your car, right? Like to have responsibilities and to have habits, but to not get stuck in that limited um, rock-like mentality of being an adult here on this planet.
Yeah. Yeah, the movie, I think you've seen it, Hook, with Robin Williams.
Oh, yeah.
That story resonates with what you just said there in terms of having that responsibility of being adult, but letting that get ahead of who we are. It's like what we do, what we need to do to be responsible gets ahead of who we really are in this world. And Robin Williams' character as a grown-up Peter Pan, again, this Peter Pan reference comes back into play with we were talking about before,
Yeah.
but it's like putting the carriage in front of the horse. The thing that's not really alive that the horse is pulling along is the more important thing. And like Peter Pan in that case realized that he had to step back and let go of all of that stuff and realize who he really was and his true nature. And really all of our true nature is that we're all children in this way. Like you were saying, the innocence and the freedom that comes with that, the imagination, the joy, the wonderment of yes. And that was the big revelation. So the thing was, he got to a point in the story where he realized, even though he got so childlike and became Peter Pan again, but then he forgot his children and the reason that he even came there in the first place, his responsibilities.
Yeah.
What he came there to do. So it was the Lost Boys and all that. They had to be like, no, you're kids. And so there was that decision he made at that new state on the spiral where he had to choose to go back to the real world. But now he has a renewed sense of who he is. So there's, again, back to that balance of it's not really a choice between doing and being. I don't think there's a balance between these two. They are really defined by time and where we are and maybe some other factors in there. But it's like, I think we need to start with who we are and being happy and enjoying that sense of wonderment of being children in this way, but then also take on the responsibility when the time calls for it.
Precisely, and not to keep using biblical examples, but I definitely have been doing a lot of research in the Bible, and this reminds me of something that I really have been, I've really been working with on my own self. So remember Martha and Mary in the Bible?
No, I don't.
Okay, so they were sisters, and they both were followers of Yeshua. And Mary was more of the sister who, she literally just loved to sit at Yeshua's feet and just listen to him talk all day, and just be so in love with Yeshua's character, and show this devotion and admiration and love, and just so childlike, and just like, wow, soaking up Yeshua's words and things like that. So she would sit down at his feet and just listen all day. Martha, the other sister, was all about, like, she had to do the dishes, she had to cook the food, she had to get things prepared. Like, she was the worker, she was the one who was responsible. And I always looked at that as like Martha was the bad one and Mary was the good one, and you want to be like Mary. But then I was talking to my spiritual mentor, and he helped me understand that you really do need to have a balance between the both of them. Because, again, imagine if all you did was just act like a child and sit on the ground and play all day, and you tracked in mud because you were playing outside, and you brought in a frog. I don't know. Like, let's say you were a child, right? And you just made a super big mess of the house because you were so excited to play. Well, now imagine on the flip side, you never were responsible and cleaned up your house. First of all, cleanliness is next to godliness, so you would literally just create a huge, ginormous mess. So I really firmly believe there's a time and a place for both the being and the doing, and it is not just about being, and it's not just about doing.
Music to my ears, Kara.
Yeah.
That is such an important revelation in this world. I think it's more of a consistent theme in terms of choice as well. Like even in and I love all the biblical references. It's really, I think let's keep them coming. But and yeah, again, and it's not but.
It is and, yeah.
And
I love that.
it's so true. Like the Venn diagram.
Yep.
When you have two circles and you put them together and you have this overlap zone, and that's where the similarities are, because you can define the differences of each one, but it's the similarities that's the whole purpose of the Venn diagram, is to really find out what the similarities are, I think. And it's the choice in that way. It's like choice has served us to a really large extent. With, let's just use the movie The Matrix as a good example here. The choice Neo made to choose taking the red pill was a very important choice for him to make. It served a purpose to take the red pill as opposed to the blue pill. Yeah. Because if he took the blue pill, it would have been a short, depressing movie.
Yeah.
I mean, after you take the blue pill, it's just let's say you're presented, or even if you don't take a pill, you just get to that choice. And you take the red pill, this will happen. Take the blue pill, what are you gonna do? And Neo's like, well, I don't think I should take any of these pills. I gotta pay my taxes tomorrow. Like, how long? What's the come down gonna be like of the pills? I gotta pay my taxes in the morning. So, that would have been a really depressing movie. But so that served a purpose, to make that distinction, to make a choice whether you're gonna be waking up or going to sleep in that example. But as the story progressed. And as the story progressed into the second and third movies, when you start to realize, like the Oracle told Neo, he didn't come there to make the choice. He came there to understand why he made the choice. And that was a false choice in its way, because it didn't matter which pill he took in that evolved understanding. It was the same thing. He was taking a pill. And then his evolution was realizing he needed to give himself back. You need to return to the source. So it's the new version of freedom or choice is not as much about which one are you going to take, which side are you going to take. It's more about how are you going to live in balance? What are you going to give back? I think that's the evolution of that. And that's more about what the Creator instills upon us. It's this unconditional force of love and bestowing. It's like the Creator gives constantly. Nature gives constantly. We rely. We're dependents upon nature. We have to take from nature in order to live, but up to a certain point, right? Because if we learn that lesson, we can start planting seeds. We can start giving back. We can start putting our own personal needs aside to take care of others and nature in itself. And then there's like breatharians and sun gazers that don't need to consume anything to live. They just they literally are just transducers of energy. They're constantly giving back. And so it's again, back to like what you were saying before, it's the doing and the being. There's a time and a place for both of those. And within this simulation, it's a really cool opportunity to understand what that means on a personal level, because I'm sure it's different for everybody to understand what that means.
Yeah, 0.0 is different for everyone. And especially because we're constantly in motion, 0.0 is also different for each person as well. But it's funny you mentioned breatharian, because it is, over the last year, I have been working towards that. That is my ultimate goal. Breatharian. I'm not there yet, but it is my goal. And and oh gosh, it's so funny that you mentioned this, because I still think that as a breatharian, you're still pulling in prana and you're giving out energy as well. But you're so spot on. That does not negate the doing. And many times we do need to do things like, for example, let's say we want to make, did you see the guy who cleaned an entire lake? Or, you know, another guy, his wife died, and so he planted like, you know, I don't know, 20,000 trees, things like that. So I feel like, you know, being is so important, but being drives doing. And then doing also then affects who you are being. So I really do see that it's very full circle, but everyone's circle looks a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's organic. It's organic, and it leaves room for interpretation and your own pathway to discover it in your own way. It's not the traditional, like, extreme. Again, there's the duality, right? So it's not the extreme religious way of saying you need to do this or be this way in order to get to heaven or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's not the extreme scientist way where, well, it doesn't matter what you think or do because it's all just random. It is what it is, and there's nothing you could do about it. It's like, but those are two kind of extremes of the same understanding. So it's to have it if you bring balance, that Venn diagram approach to the whole thing, it allows you to the freedom, because that's really kind of what it's all about. I think it's freedom is a really important thing. And I think in America specifically, there was an apex of understanding about what, let's have a free society. Let's be free, have the ability to do or be what we want. But just because we had that realization, there were a lot of contradictions there. A lot of these people saying they wanted freedom also had slaves, and they couldn't really, well, it's too much let's just deal with one thing at a time. And let's forgive them for that as much as we can. But at the same time, it's like, okay, freedom is important, but we need to evolve our understanding of freedom.
Yeah, our definition of freedom.
Yeah.
Which is very, you know, and here I feel like it might feel like a change of topic, but I feel like we're going to come full circle. Have you heard of the individual who is starting a church in Silicon Valley that is going to worship AI?
No.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, but for a second there, damn.
Apparently he's like a Google executive, and he has made the statement that, okay, I don't want to mess up what his statement is, so we'll have to look it up, but something along the lines of biological beings are not as smart as AI. And so therefore he feels like he needs to worship AI. But on the other side of the planet, there are already Buddhist monks who have already bowed down to an AI, like an actual machine-like being that stood in front of them that is apparently modeled after one of their deities.
Wow.
Are you finding it?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. His name is Anthony Lewandowski. An Unlikely Prophet is the name of the article. Dressed in the Silicon Valley casual in jeans and flanked by a PR rep rather than cloaked acolytes. That's really well written right there. The engineer, known for self-driving cars and triggered the notorious lawsuit, unveiling the latest startup of laying the foundations for a new religion that artificial intelligence inspires billion-dollar companies, far-reaching research programs. It's a first church. Wow, the way of the future. That is incredible. I mean, yeah. It was a matter of time, right, before something like that was going to happen.
Totally, a total matter of time. But I guess it's still. I mean, it's still shocking.
It is. I mean, that's a creepy religion, to say the least.
Very creepy because, and first of all, here's someone, like, I'm assuming he has a programming background. I'm just bewildered that someone so intelligent would think that something that humans created would exceed the actual human intelligence. I just feel like this completely negates nature's intelligence and pi and phi's intelligence. You know, when you really get down to the study of numbers, it is the most glorious, wonderful revelation you'll ever, find. It's like, holy cannoli. The creator of pi itself, 3.141559, the creator of phi, 1.61 itself, that you could think, that someone could think that what they create in this AI would be more intelligent than these numbers. I mean, I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
This is I feel a much different scenario than I ever would have thought, but it reminds me of the Idiocracy movie.
Yeah. I mean, that movie, as the days go on, is becoming more and more a documentary than a comedy. Yeah, and that whole thing, in my lecture I gave when I was talking about Enki and Enlil and kind of explaining the story of Enki and the whole process of fabricating these beings and inserting the DNA and bringing them up to a higher level and the whole conflict that ensued from that. I used an example of like when Enki made these or he didn't make the beings. Let's just say that, like, because just as a little side note here, when I started talking about this, I led off with Enki and Enlil and the whole conflict thereof. But I realized that in the beginning, there's a whole other chapter, a pre-chapter to that, of the Lemurian civilization. Because you got Atlantis, right? That's the whole Atlantean thing. But there was a thing before that of Lemuria. So there was a developing humanity in touch with nature and the creator and all that before Enki and Enlil ever showed up. So that's just a little sidebar. It's like that's really important to address in the future, that it wasn't just like we were made as slaves to do all the work, and that was chapter one. So it's like every time we go and discover this stuff, there's more and more chapters being discovered that precede all this stuff. So anyway, when I was talking about Enki and Enlil, and Enki fabricated these beings using their DNA and the DNA of these already existing humanoid beings, right? Enki saw that they were so beautiful and they were so smart. They were so intelligent in ways and wise in ways that the Anunnaki really weren't. And Enki was just like, he made them to do all this work, but he was just like, wow, these things are pretty dang smart. And I used an example when I to give like a modern day example that I said, like, think of today with the Google Home or the Alexa and the AI. And I said, just as a disclaimer, and there's a lot of scary stuff with AI as well, and that's a whole separate subject. But just think of like the convenience of humans right now, where you've got this supercomputer that you can just ask any question and it will give you an answer. It's like, wow, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty smart. Just in that little context alone. It's like how Enki saw these beings like, wow, they're really smart. But they weren't worshiping these beings. It wasn't like, oh, these are the new gods now. We're going to worship these guys, which like leads back to what we were saying before. It's like we made this artificial intelligence, and now they want to worship and deify it as some sort of god. Like what we made is much smarter than what we are at all in the first place. It's just it just seems completely out of line with who we are and what we do and the whole balance of everything. It seems to distort the whole balance of.
Well, yeah. Not only does it distort, but even how humans think that they can comprehend human intelligence, when truly we haven't even really truly tapped into not 100% of our brain or 100% of our heart capacity. So I feel like that is number one. Like, how arrogant could human beings be to literally think that they can comprehend how intelligent someone can be, first of all. Second of all, I think this really highlights Well, I think we need to highlight how Elon Musk said we are summoning the demons with
Yes.
AI. Okay,
Yes.
let's keep that little feather and like hold on to it. And then on top of that, all of the and 100%. I don't even know if I can use that word anymore. All of the predictive programming that I have seen in things like Star Trek, Star Wars, and now this new show, Orville. Have you seen Orville?
No, I haven't. It's like the Star Trek-esque show, right?
Yeah, well, apparently a bunch of Star Trek writers, got together with what's his name? He's the guy who did
Seth
Family Guy.
MacFarlane.
Yeah. So him plus Star Trek writers plus this whole concept that I think is being pushed down humans' lenses because they know that they could kind of create it. I mean, and it goes back to Terminator, and it goes back to Blade Runner, which apparently, all of these were actually set in like 2019, 2020, things of that nature. The other one, The Island with Scarlett Johansson, that was actually set July 7, 2019, so that's coming up as well. You just have this constant bombardment of that AI is going to take over and wipe out the planet. And legit, I just saw one of the newest Orvilles. Don't mean to give a spoiler alert, but if everyone doesn't want to hear about this, they need to turn off right now. There is a part in one of the episodes where this AI killed all of the biological beings that made the AI. Literally, billions of skulls were found, buried underneath the ground. Now, where do you think these stories come from? They come from the future. They literally come from a timeline in the future that people have envisioned because it actually happened somewhere in space or time. And then they're putting it into this timeline of now. And it is the most dangerous thing, but it's we can't claim that we don't know when people like Elon Musk, who has such the far-reaching platform that he does, he literally told, what do we think he meant when he said we're literally summoning the demon?
This is not a guy who's just using colorful language. This is a very intelligent dude.
Either. He's
right.
An engineer.
He's being very honest and explicit about the issue here. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think what's going on is some people have lost their sense of reality so much because of technology that and because so many people say so many things with Twitter and Facebook and Instagram that they kind of it goes in one ear and out the other. They don't actually stop to think, well, now wait a second, what really does he mean by summoning the demons? What does that actually mean? AI is summoning the demons. Now, let's even take a step back from that. Let's look at what, things like CERN are doing and things like HARP are doing. And, what is this huge fascination people have with Antarctica? Legit, there's so much that we don't know. And coming full circle to what we were talking at the beginning, this is exactly why I love to say, I don't know. I literally don't know. I know nothing. This whole world is just nuts.
Yeah, I love that. Well, it's funny. Both those things, I love it, and it's funny. That just seems counterintuitive, but
so
in a way, and like you said, how this stuff is coming from the future. It's funny as well because it's also coming from the past. The future and the past can be interchangeable because we're still in this moment and we go through these cycles. So kind of wherever your center point is, you can look forward or backward and see similar experiences. Like we were talking about the spiral. Even though we're moving in the spiral, we come to the same point every so many cycles, and there's a connection there, a nexus there. And if you look at Atlantis and the problems that are associated with why Atlantis fell, as depicted in the latest DC superhero movie Aquaman.
Oh yeah, that was interesting.
Atlantis is hallmarked by a high civilization that became so arrogant in their search for more and more and more that they destroyed themselves because they were not living in harmony with, I mean, they had been living in harmony for thousands and potentially hundreds of thousands of years. But they got to a certain point where they separate. They saw themselves as separate. And we're gonna do something that we want to do. It's like the contemporary version of freedom, right? We could do whatever we want. That's where that began. But that's
not like do what thou wilt, which is Alistair.
Yeah, well, that's interesting too, because that's what people hear is do what thou wilt, but they don't know the second part of that. As long as it doesn't cause harm. That part gets left out, ironically, conveniently, because doing what you want to do, that leads to Atlantis and the destruction of Atlantis. They had this technology that just got ahead of them and they destroyed their culture with it. Similar to what we're on the verge of now with Elon Musk saying we're summoning the demon, got to watch out. The AI is in control of all of the computer systems. Everything's computerized. We're taking our responsibility and deferring it to this thing this program we created with good intentions to serve us. But like every other movie that talks about, even like Terminator, they created the Terminators or Skynet to serve humanity by protecting humanity from the apocalypse. But then this program realized, well, the only thing that's threatening this world are you. It's the humans. So we're going to just eliminate you and then everything will be fine. And that's like, well, wait, you're going to kill us now? Because that's what the program leads to when we're just acting and doing and not in balance with the doing and the being. So it's funny that the past and the future seem to reflect the same exact moment, and we're in that moment right now. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I think, which I love that you mentioned Lemuria, because I really do feel like that in order for us to, as a humanity and as a society, I think, well, let me say this for a moment. One of my biggest challenges, even if you say do what thou wilt is the whole of the law, as long as it doesn't harm anyone else, does not take into effect butterfly effect. Meaning, so just because I can see that it doesn't harm my immediate circle does not actually mean that, several decisions down the road that it's not actually going to create a tsunami over in, Thailand and wipe out a whole population or a whole society. So I think that's why, that is the reason why I have the biggest problem with doing whatever you want, even if it doesn't harm the people that you see or harm whatever you see in your vicinity. It's one of the reasons why I am constantly asking for the will of Prime Creator, because only the Prime Creator can step back and see in its infinite wisdom, omnipresence wisdom, can see, infinite decisions forward and backwards and see what actually is going to be best for society. And I think that truly goes back to how awesome Lemuria is, because I think that's where Lemuria was. And if we could get back to that, it would be beautiful. And to go back to what we were saying about Elon Musk, a creation is only as good as its creator. So we have a bunch of programmers running around thinking that, they can create this amazing AI, but on the inside, they're not like Lemuria. They're more like Atlantis. And so that is why, Sarah Connor came back to kill the guy who created Skynet, which actually, if you think about it, would be Elon Musk, because Elon Musk is attempting to create the neural net right now. And again, here he is sitting in front of a wide, large audience saying, oh yeah, we're summoning the demon. Just gotta tell you, I'm gonna, make you aware of what we're doing or what we're doing before we do it. But that's what we're doing.
Yeah, it sounds all too scary at times. It's like a train that's going full speed, and we got to slow the train down. You get in there, and there's no one running the train. It's just a program running the train. The
Yeah,
whole
it's a program running the train, and the train is like Snowpiercer. Have you seen that movie?
Snowpiercer.
Oh man, you
I don't
gotta
think so.
see that movie.
No, what's that one?
That's a movie where like all of humanity is on this train, and the elite have made all of the lower class people go to the back or something, and the lower class people they literally like make that. It's kind of like, oh, do you remember Soylent Green? Have you seen that
Yeah.
movie?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So basically the elite have made this like little biscuit that's like Soylent Green, and that's what these people get to eat, and they're the ones who like keep the train going with all of their energy, but it's literally a train headed for hell, basically. It's a
Yeah.
it's a funny movie.
Yeah. I wrote it down. I'll check it out. And
Yeah.
again, we'll have to do a whole nother episode on movies
Oh my gosh. We
entirely.
literally could like just pick one movie and then do a whole talk just on that one movie. And
Yeah.
I think why we're even saying this is to really to highlight to our listeners and to our watchers, to our subscribers, that what you watch absolutely plays a part in creating the future. What you ingest through your eyes absolutely plays a part in the future, whether you like it or not. And it is um it's one of the reasons why, and especially now, like if I watch something, I have to say my own little prayer to make sure that I'm not contributing to some sort of whacked out future. And that's including in what I read. And that even goes back to what I am researching right now, which again, I reserve the right to change my mind based on given more information.
For the record,
For the record,
for all the elf lawyers in the eighth dimension, write that down. It's on the record.
precisely, so important. But one of the things I'm researching right now is, okay, I told you I've been really studying the Bible right now, and the Hebrew Old Testament and the Greek New Testament, and I have this sense, and I'm not sure yet. So again, I'm still in my research mode. Perhaps Revelation was written by the individuals who wanted to create chaos.
Perhaps, yeah. I think that was part of the. Let's just say.
Let's just say.
Let's
Let's just imagine, if you will, that Earth is run by psychopaths.
Yeah. I think that was actually a big part of Gods of Eden, in the book Gods of Eden, when he was talking about Revelations as part of that agenda to create a program, or at least tell a story that
Yeah.
people would adhere to, just similar to make a movie that people will watch and see as reality, or to reflect reality in a way, to distort reality to the point where it's like it's all going to come to an end in this very apocalyptic way, where the good people are going to go one way and the bad people are going to go another way. And there's this, it's interesting how I know I haven't read the Bible, but my sister read the whole Bible, and we had a nice talk about the whole thing. And we talked about Revelations and how that book is so different from all of the other books in the Bible in terms of the language and the message that's being communicated in there. It's amazing, like how when you go to a movie and you're watching a projection. So there's projectors that project the image onto the screen, and then our eyes are like lenses, or like camera lenses that receive light. And we've always seen these things as separate. Like, you don't use a projector to film a movie. You use a projector to show the movie. use the camera to film the movie, and the lens is to receive. So there's the receiving and the giving thing, right? But that's not the way that the human body works. It's like our eyes are receivers, but there is also the third eye, which is not necessarily a receiver in the same way. That the third eye is a crystal.
It's a crystal, yeah.
Literally a crystal that radiates a field out into the world around you. So the point is here that we are cameras and projectors at the same time. We receive and we project, and there is a physical or some sort of measurable quality to the way that we're projecting from our third eye or from all of our endocrine system, like chakra systems, out into the field. So like there's that classic quantum physics experiment where depending on whether you're observing the experiment or not watching it, the particle will either be a particle. It'll be a particle or a wave depending on if you're looking at it or not.
The observer effect.
That's right. So there's actually a measurable thing that's going on where our consciousness is interacting and sending out a field of energy to the world outside of us and influencing the matter, which is energy. So the energy of our mind is influencing the energy of our environment. And we need to remember that, because the movies that we're being told or the stories we're being told, like Revelations, for example, or Terminator, if we're showed these apocalyptic visions, then we're gonna Blade Runner, whatever it is, we're gonna project that out into the field. Mad Max, anything, Forrest Gump, even. Yeah. It's like but the thing is, if we're not conscious, or the lack of consciousness that we have, if we don't have as much consciousness, then we're just going to project what we receive, like a stimulus response program. We're a button.
Right. And now imagine now people are reading Revelation over and over and over, and not only are they believing that it is straight from the prime creator, they're looking for the signs that are in Revelation. So they're just like you said, the wave and particle. So they're the observer looking for these signs from Revelation. But then on top of that, they think that this Yeshua will come back at the end of them going through the Revelation. So they're welcoming it in their heart.
They're welcoming chaos and war and destruction. A cool thing about podcasts is we could just jump around and come full circle. I think our intention will always come full circle.
Oh yeah, we're always full circle.
We're always full circle. But when I was on my way out to this conference in New Mexico, I stayed with my aunt and Elena near Phoenix in Arizona. And my uncle is a pretty strongly devout evangelical Christian. And I would say just off the bat, he is one of the good ones. He's definitely intelligent. He adheres to the real essence of what Christianity is, in my opinion, about love and forgiveness and compassion and service and all of these things, right? You know, we had a nice long discussion about all of this stuff, and there were some things that maybe we kind of disagreed upon, but he's open-minded and loving enough that we were able to not just put up a wall and be like, well, I disagree and we're done here. We had a nice conversation. But the whole thing with the Bible and these stories we're telling, it's incredible how Revelations and the stories of the Bible are really defining who we are. I kind of lost my train of thought just now. Just before we guys. I tried to catch it. Totally lost it.
Flow with it, because clearly, like, your train of thought is heading in a direction that's good. I mean, what I hear you say is, I mean, the thing what I really appreciate is that as a follower of Yeshua, you can separate Revelation out from being a follower of Yeshua. In fact, Revelation really has nothing to do with being a follower of Yeshua. It's really just this, okay. I don't actually know where this conversation is going, but we'll just take it where it goes.
Yeah.
I recently had a dream, and it was a very, very challenging dream for me. I woke up and I had a sense of fear, and not like, oh well, fear is just false evidence appearing real, like not like that. It was a sense of holy cannoli, what are these scientists, engineers, mathematicians, and technologists doing to our planet? Like that, I woke up feeling that because I don't know if you have heard, but recently Harvard has now discovered a way that they can block the sun because they think that the sun is creating more carbon and this, that, and the other, and it's creating a huge, what do they call it? You know what I mean? What is it called? What are they calling it these days? What are the kids calling it?
What, climate change?
Greenhouse effect.
Yeah, the greenhouse effect. Yeah.
So apparently these scientists have come up with, hey, we're going to block the sun. And I don't know if they're going to use barium or aluminum or what they're going to do, but they have this idea that they can block the sun and its negative effects. And just to think of the arrogance and the outlandishness of this. I mean, first of all, it doesn't take bees into account at all. It doesn't take the trees and the plants. It's literally like, hey, look, guys, we've got a solution. We are going to block the sun, and we'll be fine. Not thinking at all about the repercussions, the decisions that are going, the butterfly effect, on and on and on. Okay, so here I am learning about this, and I'm so for science, technology, engineering, and math, following pi and phi. We really need to get back to fundamentals and the fundamentals of nature. And so here I am, like, I'm reading this, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is pure insanity. And so, so I've been really thinking and praying about this, and like really trying to get deep about, okay, like, where is this headed? Where is this headed for us? Well, anyway, I had a dream. And in the dream, the sun was turned off for 3 days. And in the dream, many people, there was pandemonium, of course, as you can imagine. The sun was off for 3 days. Now, in the dream, there were many people who, because of revelation, said, that's it. The Prime Creator has shown us that he is coming back, and we must get ready. And then there was me, who was like, oh my goodness. Okay, who is the scientist who's in charge here? Like, who's in this? I knew in the dream that this was not Prime Creator, that this was the arrogance and the absurdity of a few scientists, engineers, mathematicians, and technologists. Mm-hmm. And there was a very small group of people who knew that this was man-made and not God-made. Okay, well, now let's go back to Revelation. Guess what? In Revelation, it talks about there will be no sunlight for 3 days. Now, let's really, really, really think about this. There is, first of all, I've witnessed this. I'm a firm believer that we are in a spiritual war. And we are in a spiritual war that is not fought of flesh and blood, and we're kind of fighting this force that hates humans. That's really what I sense. That force who hates humans has been around longer than humans have. And this force is a genius. I mean, intellectually, like, has been around a very long time, so is very, very intelligent, very smart. Now let's really think about this. This intelligence could use religion, use this amazing being Yeshua, and trick all of humanity. And it goes back, I know that this kind of leads back into Gods of Eden, because even in Revelation, there are many people who believe, and even there is many Orthodox Jews also believe that there's going to be this Messiah who actually comes from the sky down to earth to heal, to bless, to bring peace, but actually is, in my opinion, the true deceiver.
Yeah, because the other part of that, as much as they're going to heal and all that stuff, they're going to punish the ones that do not conform
Yeah.
to this way of life and the big revelation, everything. That's the big red flag in terms of if you're going to have a Messiah is not going to come in and punish anybody like a true
No.
Messiah. If
No.
and if we have the Messiah within, if we become our own saviors, we're not going to go out there and punish people for not having discovered that at all. That seems very counterintuitive. And it's like I remember what I was going to say before too. The whole thing about Revelations and this whole end of the world scenario that people are kind of leading up to and feeding has to do with the state of Israel. And it's funny because the most avid supporters of the state of Israel in terms of finance is actually the evangelical Christian communities of the United States, like in the Bible Belt. That's where massive amounts of money are being funneled into Israel, and it's in this. And back to and over the theme of this deceiver energy, it's in the guise or the disguise of we support the state of Israel, we support the Jewish people and having their land, but in the discourse of the story of Revelations, it's like, well, anybody who doesn't accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior ends up getting punished and goes into like 7 fiery hells kind of a scenario. And the Jewish people do not, by and large, do not accept Jesus Christ or Yeshua as the Savior. The Savior is yet to come. So it's kind of disgusting to me that you've got a bunch of people that are supporting Israel being like, yes, we support Israel because we're religious people. Meanwhile, the only reason they really support it is because in the book of Revelations, there has to be a state of Israel that's a constant state of expansion, and that those people are going to be eliminated at the end of the whole story because it's all like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like the good intention of we want to take care of everybody and we want to support the downtrodden and the oppressed. But then again, if you get down into that, deeper into that story, they're reinforcing this apocalyptic world. It's like we're not anti-Semitic because we paid for the state of Israel, yet the whole reason you pay for the state of Israel is because the Jews need to be there in order to be eliminated so that Jesus will come back.
Yes.
And it's like, what the hell is that?
That is so effed up. I mean, it's like, it's so deceptive and disgusting, and it also is very masochistic because they basically just want chaos and pandemonium because their savior will come back. And one of the things that I learned when I really started discovering my love of Prime Creator, and I absolutely love Yeshua, but one thing I found in my own search in the Bible was that Yeshua never said he was actually going to come back. Like he said, if anyone says I am here or I am there, do not listen to them. He comes within us. We have a Christ within us that we can grow and develop and have the 9 fruits of the Holy Spirit that come out from our belly, like our gut, and out, and then we go out and we serve the world. But there are too many people who they actually need a savior to come down from the sky to rescue them because they do not have the fruits of the Spirit inside of them, and they have not been acting like Yeshua on this planet, and they have been acting like Pharisees on this planet. And so it absolutely is sad because I see the pandemonium that is being created, and that's not just in like the religious area. I mean, there's pandemonium just right now going on in terms of politics and education, and there are not enough individuals are who are so in love with Yeshua that they want to just embody that energy here on this planet. And we need more individuals like that, because we absolutely, what I see coming is the deception is going to be so ridiculous. I mean, you and I are going to roll our eyes. I know it.
We already are.
What I see, yeah, exactly. What I see is that somehow, and it goes all the way back even to when Reagan was saying, remember that one speech Reagan did about, well, I think it's going to have to take an outside force to make us all start to work together.
How wouldn't it be interesting if an alien race came in, started messing us all up? All of our petty differences would go away, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Yeah. And then the UN just quietly sweeps in and says, "Hey guys, we've got this."
Yeah, exactly. That's what a lot of the movies demonstrate. And there's the movie World War Z with Brad Pitt. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
That's exactly the prime example of that whole thing. This disease just wipes away the world, turns them all into savages, right? And like true savages, just ripping people apart. Everyone's on rabies. And who's the savior in that scenario? The UN and Dad Pitt. Dad Pitt's gonna come in and save the day. And it's funny too, there's that scene where it comes down to the final stronghold in World War Z was, out of all the countries in the world that fell to the zombies, right? Israel was the only place in the world that was able to hold them off. Why? Because they built a wall. Wow. Well, the wall is good in this narrative. We need to build a wall to keep out the savages. And just because, and then the way they tell the story is like Dad Pitt is there. I like calling him Dad Pitt because
it's actually really funny.
So Dad Pitt's there, and he's talking to the Israeli prime minister or whatever, and he's saying like, what's your secret? How did you do it? He's like, well, we knew this was coming. And it was kind of weird and ambiguous. Like somehow they knew it was coming. Even Dad Pitt didn't believe him. It's like, well, yeah, I know you built a wall, and it's like, yeah, but how did you really know that these zombies were coming? And it's just like, yeah, well, we had a feeling, we had a hunch. Yeah. We knew something was going to happen. It's like, so a little suspicious. But then they're like, nah, we can live. We're all in peace. And then they show this footage of the Palestinians and the Israelis coming together in peace because there's the common enemy on the other side of the wall, right? So they got the Palestinians and the Israelis. They're starting to sing and being like, yay, singing their songs. But then it cuts to outside the wall, and you hear these zombies. They hear the noise, the music that everyone's singing, and these zombies are like, what the hell is that? And the peace and the prosperity and the coming together of these two conflicting sides triggered the zombies to want to go in and take over. So there's this intense shot of the zombies like crawling up all over each other to get over the wall, to get in. And then eventually, spoiler alert, it's been out for a while. Anyone watching this, I'm sorry, but the zombies invade the thing, and then the whole area is just taken over by zombies after that. But talk about a mandala image. You've got the chosen people on the inside who built the wall, and then you've got all the heathens on the outside trying to get in. It was like, it just felt so wrong to me, that combined with the fact that the UN was the savior in that scenario. World War Z, World War Zion. That's really what it seemed to be in the long run. A big distortion of what all of the religious principles are, and a exploitation of peace, really, because once the Arabs and the Israelis started to get together and be peaceful, what happens? That triggered the zombies to come in and kill everybody. So therefore, walls are good, peace is bad, and just trust the UN because Dad Pitt's going to save you. Yeah. That seemed to be the narrative, and it's just that is ripples out in a lot of movies.
A lot of movies. So even from what we can say is either it's going to be some sort of like measles outbreak, which turns people into zombies, and you didn't get vaccinated, or it's going to be like Independence Day, where holy cannoli, these crazy aliens are are dropping nukes on us, and oh my gosh, they're going to wipe out all technology. So it literally, like, I feel like kind of what's going on too is that because the nature of reality and how things change so quickly, I sense that there's kind of multiple scenarios that they're working towards, and whichever one takes, then that's the one that they're going to move with. Because, I mean, recently, did you see New York banned like children under 18 who didn't have their MMR vaccination?
No, I didn't hear that. I specifically that. I know there have been a lot of stuff. There's been a lot of stuff in that.
Yeah, so apparently, I don't know if I'm saying the town right. I think it's like Rockford or something. There's a county in New York where basically they said there were so many cases of measles. I don't know. There were probably like 30. And anyone who was not vaccinated under 18 was not allowed to go out in public for 30 days.
Yeah. It's a slippery slope right now, especially when everybody is so entrenched in fear that really just opens up the floodgates for decisions like that to happen, where then we'll authorize it. Like 9/11 happens, everyone's afraid, and then they'll be like, oh, well, we got the Patriot Act here, and if you just sign this, then we'll protect you. Like, oh, yes, please, we want that. So that when we're in fear, we're more impressionable. Another funny thing, too, is like all the different narratives or potential apocalyptic realities that they're trying to manifest right now. Let's go through 4 of them. And it's funny because no matter how different they all may seem to be, they are all exactly stemming from the same issue. Number 1, aliens, alien invasion, i.e. Independence Day, like we were saying. Number 2, zombie apocalypse. Mm-hmm. Everyone turns into a zombie except the select few, and we got to get, World War Z.
Yeah.
Number 3, the gods, the return of the Messiah, or like Clash of the Titans type thing, where some god is going to come back and going to, separate the wheat from the chaff or whatever it is, separate, right? So there's right. So there's the 3, those are 3, and that's like Clash of the Titans.
Yeah.
The 4th one is the AI, like Terminator. The AI is going to take over, and there's going to be a ton of robots, and there's going to be a lot of robots and a few humans. Yeah. Now, they all are very different in their like a story, but the subtext is exactly the same. And I think it stems from the illusion of separation, or the delusion of separation, where we have this concept of a circumcised pyramid like we have on the back of the $1 bill. There's the pyramid, the whole story, but then you sever the top and you've got the 1%, the 99%. So again, it's a top-down narrative where whatever you want the top to be, whether it's aliens, the aliens are going to come back and we need to deal with it in that way, or the zombies, you got the 99% of the zombies and the few humans that are left. And then there's the gods coming back to fulfill it. Like, again, it's this flip-flop between who's the 99%, who's the 1%, which side of the narrative are you going to be on? Each one of these has a different take on it, but no matter how you look at it, it's still the illusion of separation. It's still this severed, circumcised pyramid where we have 99% and 1% on one side, whether it's 99% Terminators and 1% humans, or 1% humans and 99% zombies. Either way, that's a terrible scenario to be in. Yeah. So they're propagating all the different possibilities, and whichever one, like we were saying before, they're going to show us these movies, they're going to tell us these narratives, and whichever ones that resonate with us, we're going to project back out into the field. Mm-hmm. They're really banking on us to not be conscious of the fact of who we really are.
Yes.
So that we will just like cause and effect. They're going to hit a button and we're going to respond.
Yeah, and then the UN will come in and we'll be like, oh, we're saviors.
Yeah, or a particular leader, even. Whether it's again, the 1% versus the 99%. in that way. It's either going to be a leader, a single guy or a single woman or whatever is going to come back and I'll save you, or it's going to be a group of people like the UN, the 99%. It's going to be a whole system of a bunch of people that, whoa, we got this great group of people, we'll save you.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just, at times it's frustrating, but at times it's just hilarious because it just seems so obvious.
It seems so obvious, and I think that is why, you know, individuals like you and I who have chosen to be conscious during this time, we have a large responsibility, especially to tell stories, to write books, to create movies where we are assisting to change the narrative. Because, you know, my dad always says those who know more have a bigger responsibility. And so, you know, our subscribers, I know, are also in line with us. We all really do need to become active participants in this malleable matrix that we live in, and write, tell stories, sing songs, write, you know, create dances, like really get involved in this co-creatorship, because there are far too many people who are creating right now, and they're creating based on a narrative that they're the 1% and we're the 99%.
Right.
And you know, like, here's another prime example. I mean, this is allegedly, so I'm not, until I can cite sources, I'm not so sure, but I did read that it was Prince William who literally said, we need to do more in Africa on population control. And even if it wasn't him, there have been many people like Bill Gates who have talked about population control. And that is just so berserko. I like literally get so cranky about this, because, you know, that's that whole narrative of them being the 1%, and they should have all of the resources. Clearly Africa is just a horrible existence, and it's just, you know, toxifying the entire planet. Well, I mean, it's just backwards, and that is not how I see things. I know 100% this planet can handle the amount of people we have and more.
Right. Yeah. And that all the things you described about how we need to tell stories, we need to write, we need to create dance, we need to ultimately create more art, and even true science. It's like, I really love what your dad said. It's the more that we know, the more responsibility that we have, right?
Yeah.
Like something like even science in that respect. It's like we should really endeavor to know more, but take on the responsibility that comes with that. And all of those things, well, maybe the knowledge part that could be attributed to Atlantis, but all of the other things are much more Lemuria based. Before there was the written word, we had our oral tradition of telling stories, and that's how we remembered what was going on. And it was so important that when the elders told the incoming youth the stories, that they memorized it to the T, not even just the words, but the feeling and the heart and the emotion that was carried through the story from one generation to the next, so that 100 generations down the line, when I'm telling you the story, it's the exact same story and the exact same feeling that it was 100 generations ago. And there's so much more, there's way less for interpretation in that. I'm not just saying, here, read this is the story of our origins. It's way more real. It circumvents all of that room for interpretation. So it's again, I think there's that, again, coming to balance between the Lemurian way of telling stories and being in the moment in our heart and our feelings, with the Atlantean way of knowledge and taking on that responsibility of the knowledge. It's bridging the gap between our heart and our mind, learning how to think with our heart and feel with our minds. Mm-hmm. That's the quantum leap that needs to happen. And until we do that, we're going to keep repeating the same stuff over and over and over again. Because the thing is, like, when you tell the story orally, as opposed to just reading the story,
watching the story, you're
living it at the moment. It's kind of even some like the difference between reading a book and watching a movie. Because no matter how much you break it down, there's that fractal nature of things, and it's very self-similar and repeating. But when you read a story, you're using your imagination so much more. It's like you're there in a way. Whereas when you're watching a movie, more oftentimes all that work is being done for you. It's great in its own way, but you're removed from it. You're the audience member watching the movie. When you're reading the story, there's a lot more engagement going on with your consciousness there. To take it a step back further, when you're telling the story, you're reliving the story. A good storyteller makes you feel like you're really there. A good storyteller is there when they're telling the story. They're not telling you way back long ago, this is what happened. You tell it in the first person present tense. And that's, I think, the biggest difference with a lot of this stuff. So the Lemurian way and the Atlantean way need to come together in that Venn diagram type of way, where we use our minds, feel with our hearts, vice versa, and really just take that responsibility. I think that's really what it kind of all comes down to, because there's not going to be a Messiah. There's not going to be a God. There's not going to be a artificial intelligent computer program that's going to save us. It won't take a zombie apocalypse or some sort of crazy crisis to do it. We can embody all of that personally in our own way. We need to become the Messiah. We need to go through that death transformation process in our own way. We need to realize that a lot of our thoughts are programmed at all, and they're not even our thoughts. We need to backtrack to the original intention there. So again, it all kind of comes back to seeking within for the answers, but also unifying the polarities.
Yeah, because right now, I mean, that's what you were just saying. Before tribes would tell stories, they would share the stories with the younger generations. I fully sense that the older generations knew the importance of how they shared the stories, which stories they shared, and making sure that the next generation could then share the stories from there. Where we are right now is anyone can write a story, anyone can do a movie, and so the lines have really been blurred of like what's real and what's not real. And I know that that's exactly where the 1% want us, where we're so just confused about what is real reality and what's not real reality, that the wave and particle effect is even more in their domain, or like they're in their control. And that's again why I say individuals who are conscious absolutely need to, then now we have this knowledge. We have accepted that we are here. We've accepted that we are in the state of finitism, and we have a huge responsibility of the stories we tell. And so then we must, with that with that knowledge, take the responsibility, tell the stories that we see in the future, hold that vision for heaven on earth and not hell on earth, which is clearly what a lot of individuals are trying to create right now. So yeah, I'm excited because you're working on your movie, Mandala. I'm writing my book right now. I'll share the name of the book when it comes time, but I have literally realized that this is not about me. Let's say I never even have anyone read this book. I still understand the gravity and the weight of writing it and putting it out there, because it's not just about people reading it and it becoming a bestseller, or this, that, and the other, it even becoming a screenplay or whatever. It's truly about understanding that we are writing reality as we go. We truly are co-creators on this planet. Every single one of us is a co-creator, has been endowed with gifts from the Prime Creator, and these gifts are meant to be shared with the world. And I can absolutely guarantee that the 1% wants you to think that there's a savior out there so that you do not realize the talents and the gifts that the crime creator gave you.
Yeah, that's so important. With this video right now,
Yeah.
if one person is watching it right now, if you're watching this and at all resonating with this, that makes our day, right, Kara? This is that, just even if it's not one person that hears this and resonates with it, that's like really an accomplishment. So putting it out into the field and just being yourself and doing what you want to, being yourself and doing what you want to do at the same time, putting it out into the field and letting go. And then it's not even really the success of, well, or the failure for that example, if it didn't live up to the expectation of, well, this book didn't, or this movie did not live up to what I wanted, it didn't make the bestseller, or it's not Academy Award worthy. That's not what the creator or nature favors or rewards upon. It's the action of continually doing that. Just being honest and doing what you have to, and doing that and being yourself and continually doing it, not to be let down by that. Because again, it's about quality over quantity in that respect. And the more that you do that, the more that we go through that process, the more likely that it's going to succeed. Because if you're growing a bunch of crops and you have a field, you don't just plant one stalk of corn. You plant a ton of them. Some of them may not work. Some of them will a lot. But the more you plant, the more likely you're going to have a good crop from that. So it's the action of continually doing that, which really, I think, resonates with the whole thing. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, what I was just going to say is that yeah, because think about even just growing something, it has to break through the earth. So even if you just are planting corn, the act of planting breaks through the earth and changes the earth and changes the existence that we are in. And so it is the same with books, with songs, with movies. It truly is not about it becoming a New York Times bestseller or being read by everyone, or how many likes did you get on Facebook, this, that, and the other. Let's just remember 100% that there is a book that was called The Last President, and the same author wrote Barron Trump's incredible adventure. And who do we have in the presidency right now? And what is his son's name? Trump. And truly, we don't know how many people read that, but that was back in the day before social media. So it couldn't have been read by that many people. So no matter what, we really do have to realize that whatever we put out there, the butterfly effect is real. One flap of the butterfly wing changed the weather on the other side of the planet. That's literally how minimal you have to do something in order to change the entire face of the planet.
Yeah, it takes a lot of the pressure off, especially considering that we have so many people on the planet right now. It's like the biggest team ever.
Yeah.
It really allows the freedom to just do exactly that without the pressure of, oh my God, there's so much responsibility on me to do all this stuff. It's no, I'm just going to do my part and it'll reach somebody out there, and just got to trust that. And if everybody were to act in that way, then the butterfly effect would take hold, where then the massive effects would take place. And even that narrative of the 1% and the 99%, mostly we would associate with the 99% because it's the majority. It's the bottom up mentality. It's what gave rise to it. Generally the minority or the 1% are the quote unquote misguided ones or separated ones in that circumcised pyramid narrative right there. But that also changes the other way around, because Neo in the Matrix, the protagonist, is the 1%. Mm-hmm. And that type of mentality to want to save the world or write something that's going to become a very successful thing, or make a movie that's going to be a very successful thing, that's in that consciousness, we're the 1%.
Yeah.
I'm going to share with you. And that was the original thing of Mandala. when we were writing that in the first place. We were handed this story from Uncle Bruce that gave a very disturbing, honestly disturbing outlook of the future, a very presumptive fictional thing. Like, this is going to happen if we keep going down this path. So when we were handed that story, oh my God, we need to tell the people the truth. We have this responsibility to get this out there. We have to wake people up. And that all changed, where now it's not as much of I mean, we're going to tell the story, but that's not the most important part. The most important part, which wasn't in the original draft that Uncle Bruce wrote, was about the characters. The story was there, but the characters were not fully developed. And the characters are what drive the story. A good movie or a good book is driven by the characters. You want to relate to those characters. Yeah. So it's really that whole process of going from the 99% back to the 1%, back to the 99. It's like going in this revolution type of flipping the pyramid over and over and over again. When then you have to make a decision at some point. But like, this is madness. This is madness. I can't keep looking at myself as trying to enlighten you, and I can't keep looking at this like there's a bad guy, an evil guy out there that I need to stop. Yeah. Either way, it's the same type of thing. So it's once we decide to stop the revolution and begin the evolution by creating. Yeah. It's so that, again, it comes back to the evolution and creation, the two most opposite things in the world. It's like, no, those are hand in hand operations together. And when they work together, that's when wonderful things happen.
Yes. I love it too. And I love what you're just saying about creating. We're all Neos, first of all. Everyone is a Neo. And we're all meant to create. And it is so awesome to get to a place. And I really feel like now this has gone full circle of our conversation. You don't have to know anything to create. And I think that's what's the coolest thing, is so many people think you have to know something, or you have to be this person, or you have to be this like awesome entity in order to create. And no, you literally do not. Everyone can create. Everyone is a Neo. And I love that switching up of the understanding. Yeah, there's no like, if anything, what we're seeing as evil is absolutely just, it's like when you go to the gym, if you didn't have a resistance band, or if you didn't have resistance to lift a weight, would you ever grow muscle? No. So I think that that's really, when you become awake, that is the truth.
Yeah. I love what you said too, that we don't need to know anything to create. That makes me, that I have a personal story that resonates a lot with that. When I was younger in high school, before going to film school and knowing how movies are made and all that stuff, all we had was a camera, and we just had ideas. We just made stuff. We just went with what we wanted to do. And we were so much more free. We made movies all the time. Like every weekend, we were just coming up with an idea, writing some stuff down, and making a movie at that point. And we went to film school, learned all this stuff, and gained so much knowledge of the whole process, which is great. Love that knowledge. But we find ourselves at like a writer's block all the time. It's like, okay, let's do something. All right, well, in order to do it, we have to write a script and make it a certain way. And before we have the script, we got to have the money. It's like, now that we have knowledge, we immediately put up all these roadblocks.
Yeah.
Before we can actually do anything. So there have been so many times where we've talked about that, being like, wow, we were so much more free to do what we wanted before we knew anything. And then once we knew stuff, we stopped making anything.
Yeah.
Or we just made it so much harder on ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's that what you said is just so true. We don't need to know in order to create.
No. I'm telling you, that's going to be something we touch on a lot in our future podcast, because it is so fundamental that that creators realize their creatorship on this planet because I fully know, funny I'm saying that, I fully know that that is what the Creator placed us here for, to create. We are creator. We were created to create. And you're so spot on. When people get a lot of knowledge, they tend not to create. There's too many reasons that they can't create, or they don't have the right ingredients, or they don't have the right this, or it's just not the right timing, or whatever it is, and it blocks the flow of creativity. And I fully sense that that actually is what a lot of where the Holy Spirit in the Bible was about. It was just following the creativity of the Creator. And if you think about the way that the world operates right now, it inhibits creators, because if you don't have you don't have a label, so you can't put out music. Well, you don't have an investor, so you can't create this business. Or oh, sorry, you don't have the right tax exemption, or whatever. There's literally so many things that stop people from creating. And going back to the Bible, there was in my research, I have found that actually the prime creator only gave humans one rule, and that was eat from the tree of life, don't eat from the tree of knowledge. And I'm not going to say knowledge of good and evil, because I actually sense that knowledge is what is the beginning of good and evil. But when you just eat from the tree of life, there's goodness, there's creativity, there's happiness, there's joy. But the moment you start to feel like you know something, the moment you start to feel like you have to know something, the moment you feel like you have to prove anything to anyone about knowledge, or what kind of knowledge you have, all of a sudden, you're completely cut off from the true tree, which I feel is the tree of creativity.
Yeah. It's like knowledge. There's that saying, knowledge is power, which is absolutely true in its own way. But life is creation. And it's good to have knowledge, and power can be good, but that can be very corruptive. Whereas if you are just in the tree of life zone, you're in the creation zone.
Yeah.
There's no need for power at that point, because you're just creating. It's like there's no need to make something that everyone's going to see so that you could feel satisfied or have that whatever. You're just like a true artist. You're just making things to reflect and to cast out your inner.
Yeah, you're not creating to prove to anyone anything. You're not creating because you want $1 million. You're not creating because you have to have the right spouse, or you have to have the right friends, or you want to impress the elite. You're literally in this space where it's truly, in my opinion, the equal playing ground. Because when you're really in that space, you know that you are not higher or lower than anyone. Everyone is their own creator and has the co-creation power with the prime creator. So it is so different. When you go into that knowledge realm, all of a sudden you don't have the source creator, the prime creator's energy. So no wonder you have to have knowledge in order to have power, because that's the only then energy source that you have. It's really exciting, because, and it goes back to my lead character, who she's famous for saying, I don't know.
I love that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know nothing.
Yeah, I will say that forever, is that the best piece of knowledge is that we know very little. Knowledge is good, but we got to recognize where that focal point of the knowledge is. That quantum moment of knowledge is that we don't know shit.
Yeah.
And that's when all the stuff opens up. That's when that's all of a sudden, once it's like when you're looking for something, you can't find it. You spend all day searching your house and rummaging through all the stuff, turning everything upside down, looking for that thing you can't find. And then you just say, you know what? I'm done looking. I'm tired of looking. You turn around, there it is. It's once you stop looking, then the thing you're looking for all of a sudden appears. So
Which
once
is
we
the wave particle.
again, right, exactly. It's like we're looking for it. Our consciousness is trying to paying attention. We have to allow the universe to kind of do its own thing. That we're co-creators in this universe, and we have to like throw the ball back and let the universe do what it has to do with it for a second. So
Yeah.
it's amazing how it kind of works like that.
It's so amazing and it's so awesome. And I am really excited. First of all, one thing I want to say, because I know our subscribers will be watching. I would love for our subscribers to know when we're going to do this, because we could even do this live, Alex.
Yeah, the show. I think so. We should do that, because we could post this on our Facebooks or whatever, and people could tune in and be asking questions live on the air.
We could be doing Q&As. We could, I really want to start doing that.
I think so. I think this is a really good step where we're at right now too, of like when we first did this in this new incarnation of doing the A2K with the video and everything. I know I feel a lot more comfortable in doing this.
I do. Yeah, I absolutely do. And I also have gotten to a point where I'm so happy knowing nothing, and I feel like that is a really fun place to be doing a podcast.
Yes, I completely agree. And with that in mind, I actually do have to get going.
I was literally going to say the same thing.
Really?
Which is why we're kind of we're so in tandem. Yeah, we're so in tandem. So let's thank you for watching, subscribers. Thank you for tuning in. We will definitely let you know when we're going to be live, and we're going to start doing that for sure. And thanks for supporting us, and we're so excited to share in our knowing of nothing.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing once we accept it, because then the wisdom comes in. It's so much easier to not have to know anything.
It's so much easier. It's so
our
free.
Natural state.
Yeah. And that's what children are like all the time. They don't need to know.
Wow. Well, way to bring it full circle.
Full circle.
Oh, yeah. That's how we roll. That's how we roll, Kara. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Alex, so much for this awesome time. I'm so glad we both had the time to do this. And I think once a week.
Yes, let's do it. I'll download this and post this up tonight, since there's really no editing involved.
Sweet.
All right.
Well, awesome. Take care.
All right. Peace up, everybody.
Yeah. Peace up. Lots of love.